My name is Pej, or Pejman Alagamanan, but I go by Pej. And my sobriety is June 16, 2007. First time I ever got loaded was huffing gas at the age of 12. And then I drank and I did lots and lots of drugs. And I ran my life into the ground. I was everything from a drug dealer to a drug abuser to a drug user. And I got sober right around the same time as you, right? Class of 2007. So I work in beginnings treatment centers. I do outreach for them. I'm an interventionist. I'm a life coach, a sober coach. I work with a plethora of young people and old people that are in recovery, and I'm recovered. Thanks.
Hi, thank you all for coming to speak to us. For those of us who aren't addicts or alcoholics, I'm curious if you could speak to kind of the Al-Anon portion, like how friends and family either contributed to your disease or, you know, I'll just leave it at that.
Who wants to go?
So when I say my name is Gary, I'm also an alcoholic. It's because I'm also an Al-Anon. My father was an alcoholic. I became the man that I didn't like. So I was raised by an alcoholic and I picked up all those character traits. So I still attend Al-Anon meetings. I understand that if I would have found Al-Anon first or L-Team as a counseling or therapist, let's say, I probably wouldn't have drank. I probably would have understood there was a solution and that it wasn't me, it was people. So I've said this for many years, even though I'll be 28 years sober, I think it hit me, 18 years ago, that if the sobriety didn't mean so much to me, I probably would try to drink like a normal person now, because now I understand the disease, but I don't take that chance. Because as he said, his third college, I did my third college, and I still said, the hell with it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
I was going to
Go.
No, please go ahead.
Beauty before age, go.
For me, growing up Latino, in case you didn't notice.
Me too.
I always said that in the Mexican culture, we don't have alcoholics because we don't think it's a bad thing to drink. It's Tuesday, let's have a beer. It's the birthday party, well, of course we're going to drink. It's a wedding, oh, yay, let's drink. So I didn't think I had a problem. My family always had beer and alcohol in the house. It was never an issue. I think my mom, without wanting, did enable me a little bit because she always gave me extra money when I moved out. It's like, here's a little something to go have fun. It's like, yeah, Mom, you don't even know. And then I became a drug dealer, and the dealer was my friend, the one that sold me, and he would let me slide. So I did all my product, never do your own product. But I think towards the end, first my landlord gave me an eviction notice. Then my friends stopped calling me or inviting me out. Then my family stopped calling. And then I got kicked out of my apartment. They came for the car. I had to move out in the middle of the night and just take whatever clothes I could get. And the friend that I moved in with was like, this is how we're going to do things around here. And then I went to rehab, and that changed everything.
So I know I look Latino, but I'm actually Persian. And in our community, it's to be a drug addict is it's a stigma, it's a taboo, especially when your parents are doctors and scientists and things like that. So to become a full-blown drug dealer, my mom definitely did not want to accept that I was an addict or an alcoholic, and I like to pull the wool over her eyes. And for the longest time, she was not exposed to Al-Anon. She was a helicopter mom. She was also very codependent. I mean, like in our community, in the Persian community, we have our own codependency anonymous speakers. No joke. And so once she caught wind of Al-Anon, and I think by the time she was probably a brown belt in Al-Anon, she was catching on to me, and that's when I got kicked out of the house. I mean, I was 35 years of age, run my life into the ground. She told me to leave. I have no place in her life, and I need to go find my way. And I think by the time I went to treatment, she was probably a black belt. And then I realized there's no way back into her life unless I really get sober and go into AA and treatment.
I think for me, I definitely was enabled a bit from my mom, and I can say she's here tonight actually, but I can just say it. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from Philadelphia, and I think you know, when things started to get really bad for me, it was my dad. You know, it was like, you know, sort of washed his hands with me, and he was like, "You're out. You know, you're done." And my mom, you know, still really wanted to hold on, and because, you know, it's tough on your family. Like, they think they can still like save you. You know, they see the progression, and like it just destroys the whole family. But you know, without her, I wouldn't have been able to get into the first treatment center I went to. You know, it was either like, you know, take this bag and, you know, go on the street, or take this bag and you can go to rehab. So that's what it's like for me.
I just answered. Go for it.
Steps that family members can take in case one of their loved ones is actively using or drinking or has a major problem. Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Well, like I said, I'm an interventionist, so, and being Persian, I have a lot of Persian families always calling me. I mean, addiction runs rampant in our community, but also just in general, when it's out of family members' hands and they don't know how to handle it, there are professionals that are available that can step in and put together an intervention. I'm sure you've seen the show. You know, there's steps that have to be taken, but it depends on where the person's living. If the person's living at home with their family and they might be shacked up in the room, using, doing things, you know, some people go homeless, and I've done a lot of interventions where people are living in their homes a lot and their parents are enabling them, and the goal is to get the family together and see how it's affecting the family and how what can be done. And if it's out of their hands, then we sit down, write letters, do all that we have to do, and then do an actual intervention. That's one of the steps. Also, I think a lot of families need to get educated on, you know, as she was mentioning, Al-Anon or Nar-Anon. Nar-Anon's for narcotics, people that use narcotics, and Al-Anon is mainly for alcoholics, but there's a lot of people who go to Al-Anon that don't have alcoholic children. But those are programs that are 12-step programs that are designed to help family members, or, you know, anybody that has a loved one that's suffering with addiction or alcoholism. They go to meetings, they work on themselves, they learn how to detach. There's CODA, Codependency Anonymous too. A lot of people get addicted to their addict or alcoholic. They don't realize that they're always trying to fix them. As I mentioned, helicopter moms or helicopter dads, they're hovering. They're just constantly like trying to fix the issue. They think they actually have the power to fix a person that's addicted to drugs, drug issue, and it's just not likely. It doesn't usually happen.
In my first couple meetings of Al-Anon, I learned I didn't cause it, I can't control it, I can't change it. I also learned do not nag, scold, or argue. So if you Google the do's and don'ts of Al-Anon, you're going to see do this, do this, do this, don't. That will help your mindset of how you think you could save them, how you think you can make a difference. You can't. The person has to be ready. So when it gets to a point where the whole family is there and they're concerned, there's lots of issues, I feel then that's when we jump in with an intervention. You know, but for the most part, a family's going to keep it hush up and try to control it the best it can. But some people control it for 20 years, but it gets them nowhere. So the person has to be willing to realize, I've lost this, I've lost that. Okay, I'm ready. How can you help me? Then they're open to the intervention, I believe. The way I understand them, I never had one. I've never been on one. I've conducted my own 12-step call with someone. But go to an Al-Anon meeting, check it out. They have great literature. That's a 12-step recovery program that's for you to take care of, like minding your own business, take care of you, protect you. And it's the only program I know that just reads and reads and reads and reads for an hour and a half. And then there's a couple of minutes to share your experience.
Is there anybody in here that doesn't know what Al-Anon is when we speak of it? I had a feeling. Al-Anon's a 12-step meeting. So when a lot of us that are in recovery, we'll go to Alcoholics Anonymous or Narcotics Anonymous or Cocaine Anonymous, whatever, you know, is specific to what we were using or drinking. And that's for us to go and get our recovery. A lot of people get their lives back. It was a program that was designed in 1938 or 39 by Bill Wilson and Dr. Bob. And it was two alcoholics that came together. They created this program. Well, in that time, Bill Wilson's wife, Lois Wilson, she didn't know how to, handle her emotions, and she didn't know how to handle her husband sober, because he completely transformed. So she took the same principles and the same steps that were in Alcoholics Anonymous. It's 12 steps, and she started Al-Anon, and so that came about, and now it's extremely powerful. I love Al-Anon. It saved my life. If my mom didn't give me that tough love, I wouldn't be sitting here sober. I know I wouldn't.
Do you want to do that?
I was just going to say from my personal experience, it was kind of talking about kind of what Gary was saying. When I remember before I took the steps to recovery, one of the most important things was to recognize that I lost everything, and then kind of, at least a lot of my friends kind of really beat me on the head with that. They're like, all right, do you want this relationship to continue? Because you have a relationship with alcohol and drugs, and you choose either your friends that you have, which you claim are real, or this fiction that you're living within your drugs and alcohol while you're high and drunk all the time. And it was kind of like here's the reality. You either choose what's real, which is the people that we're surrounded with and the people that we care about, or this fantasy land that at least I would know that I was living in, being drunk and high all the time at work and at school, and living my life and getting kicked out of places. And that was kind of my awakening, at least.
Yes.
Hi, thanks for coming and speaking to us. I appreciate it a lot. I'm also an addict and just got sober recently. Something I've struggled with was different coping strategies. There's a lot of really great healthy ones. There's also using nicotine, and that's something that I was not able to give up when I got sober. So I was wondering if you guys smoke in recovery, what's your views on that? Is it that bad? And if you were able to abstain if you were able to stop using entirely, or do you still rely on that coping strategy?
Well, I went to rehab to get clean sober. And there's no way in hell you can quit smoking in rehab, because everybody smokes in rehab. That's the only pastime you have. It's like currency. You make a lot of really good friends with cigarettes. Not that way, you just make them friends. I will say it was brought up to my attention when I went to rehab that don't give up everything all at once, because it could just torture you. Because I was a crackhead and an alcoholic, and I smoked. So I gave up the first two bad ones, and I kept the smoking. I picked up chocolate. And there is nothing more relaxing than a piece of dark chocolate just melting in your mouth, dude. It would, no matter how manly you are, there's just that moment. Right? Yeah. So I would say it's on your time. It's on your pace. And the way that I quit 6 months after I got out of rehab, and only because I was flying to visit friends in San Francisco who did not smoke. And they're like, you cannot come here and smoke at all. And I think it was more of them making me want to quit. And I was gone for 10 days. When I came back, I took a whiff of the last clothes I wore, and it reeked of cigarette. And that's what took me off of it. I was like, I don't want to smell like that anymore. My suggestion, give up cigarettes on your time. Because you're going to be stressed, and I'd rather pick up a cigarette and de-stress a little bit than go out and use or get drunk.
Thank you.
So I'm an addict in all my affairs. No matter what it is, it's never enough. And so smoking, I could take it or leave it when I was drinking, but I always bum one just to fit in. So when I quit smoking one time and my drinking was ending, I ended up in AA, and I ended up bumming cigarettes off people, and I made a lot of friends, and then I was a giver. So if you gave me one cigarette, I gave you a pack, okay, to pay you back. And so 9 months into my sobriety, I took my 2 cartons of cigarettes and I put them in the refrigerator, and I applied one day at a time to those. I said, if I want them bad enough, they're right here, but I'm going to apply one day at a time. I'm just not going to smoke right now. I'm just not going to smoke today. I'm not going to smoke tomorrow. And the cigarette sat there for a long time. It's kind of like the liquor in the house. I didn't throw out my liquor, you know, because if I want it, I want it. If I want it, I'm going to get it. Okay. So there's another reading in Al-Anon called "The Alcoholic Speaks to His Family." So I apply the same thing by smoking and my drinking to that information. It's just one day at a time. I don't smoke. I have more smoking dreams than anything. This guy vapes on campus. And we come out of a meeting and he smells like cotton candy. So I either want to take a hit or I want to lick him, right? So I want that hit so bad, I want to taste it. But I know for me, I don't have a problem saying no. I have a problem saying no more. So as long as I don't pick it up or lick it, I'm okay. You know? So if you can wrap yourself around that analogy, you know, that's what I did, and it worked. And I haven't had a cigarette since December 23rd, 1991.
So now you have two options on how you can work that.
Exactly. You know, but back then there were still cigarettes on the billboards, right? So you're in rush hour traffic and someone opens the window and lights that cigarette, that first hit of the paper that smells like that. And then you're looking up at the Marlboro guy going like this. You know, that's how bad I'm an addict. But I just don't touch it.
Next question.
So, when in recovery, like, what was the thing that drove you to like say no? Like, when you had the urge to like cave in to your addiction, like, what made you say no or turn away?
Want to go first?
What was your bottom?
Yeah. Sure. So you're asking like when like, you know, there's a difficult situation, like.
Yeah, like let's say your friends went out or something, like what made you turn away and say no? Like, did you engage in another activity or like what did you do?
In recovery.
Right. Okay. So I think there's like a couple different like parts to that question. I think that one is, especially early on, I tried to like replace some unhealthy habits with like more positive habits. Like instead of, you know, like just like hanging around and like doing nothing, and like exercise, instead of like, you know, maybe passing on going out to a concert or like going out to a bar or something. That was really like something I tried to stay away from, especially early on, just until I felt like I got sort of like a foundation and worked some steps in AA and had a larger support group around me and had a sponsor I could, somebody that I could call and have people in recovery that were like a support system for me, so I could, you know, if I was feeling stressed that day, or, you know, somebody was going to a concert or whatever it may be, give them a call, just talk to them, you know, because it's all people that you can relate to. That's something I found very helpful. And then one other thing I would say is that actually, I totally forgot what I was about to say. It was in there somewhere, but I forgot. Sorry.
It's okay. Happens all the time.
I know for me, at least, the biggest thing is whenever I feel the want or like need to drink, when I get overwhelmed with like frustration, or I get overwhelmed with like emotions, or I get a bunch of feelings that I'm not used to, because normally I'm used to just numbing them and pushing them under the table. The biggest thing that I first think about when I after normally calming myself down from like a fluster of emotions, I go, hey, what was your life like before? Which was terrible, like using, abusing, drinking myself silly, to throwing up in the corner, living out of my car. And I go, do I want to go back to that? And it's like, absolutely not. So there's no way that I will drink or put myself in the situation to where that I might compromise that like now foundation that I have, which is sobriety right now. And it's like, and then I just keep rekindling all of the like bad thoughts and then stir them away with the positivity of like where I am now and how far I've gone in the past like only 7 months of being sober, and it's like, all right, cool, I'm going in the right direction. And if I take any steps at all, if I take one step back, like Gary was saying, it's like I will skyrocket backwards and end up right at the dive bar down the street, and I'll be there all night long, today, tomorrow, buying everybody shots, and I just can't go back to that. So I choose to avoid the entire situation.
I'm a student in recovery as well. So you guys who went through college in recovery, what was your experience with that?
Went to college in recovery?
Yeah.
Was clean sober in college.
Because anytime I tried to go to college when I was loaded, I would always drop
Oh, yeah,
out. A lot of W's and F's. I never, that's as far as I would get. In recovery, I got to actually focus and pay attention and do good. I mean, there was people that were examples to me that would say, if you stay sober, you can excel, you can go back to school. And they were actually living it and doing it. So by them leading by example, and I didn't want to go to school. I just did not do well in school. I failed. I went to the Art Institute. I'm an artist. I was so effed up in school that I was failing art school. I was put on academic you can always tell the sign of an addict that might be having a lot of problems in school, academic probation, especially double academic probation. And then,
That's right. Sorry.
he's my friend. He relates. But once I went back to school, this is how out of the loop I was educationally. I opened up my laptop and it said Pejman Aladwanan 4.0. I never saw those numbers attached to my name. And it said Dean's List, and I thought, who's Dean, right? Like, it's a guy, and I made his list. Stupid me. But no, I did really well. I did really well, right? And I did things with the education that I was able to obtain.
You're going to college now, right?
Yes. And like you said, when I first got sober and I moved out to California and went to another treatment facility in California, I didn't think that going to college in recovery was even a possibility, honestly, until I heard stories of other people in recovery, who have walked this path and are excelling in college, and you're in college as well, and you just meet other people and you start gaining some confidence back and believing in yourself and having people around you to support and encourage you. And now, I mean, my grades have never been better in my life. So it's just like for me at least, I went back to school with a new drive, a new motivation, and like I actually wanted to be in school and study these things and learn and keep progressing. You get like a huge sense of achievement and moving forward.
How proud your mom is.
Yeah, you can tell that's my mom right there.
She's blushing on it.
Next question.
No more questions,
Well,
really?
somebody thinks of a question. I actually went to college in my 30s. I went to trade school right after high school. And then in my 30s, I was using, and I chose alcohol and drug counseling. So I would go to class in the morning pretty drunk or high. I called it research. And I usually ended up arguing with the professor or with the other students because I knew the inside story. They didn't know I was using, but I know about this. I didn't finish, but now I kind of regret it. I want to go back because I'm in my late 40s now. I want to go back and get my bachelor's, but my path's kind of going in a different direction, so we'll see. I didn't know I had hit rock bottom. I just kept digging. I knew there was an issue when, my drug dealer got arrested and his wife took over the business. And I worked in an Italian restaurant and I would bring leftovers home and I would trade it for drugs so that I wouldn't have to pay for money. And when my drug dealer told me I had a problem and that she wouldn't sell me anymore, and that's when I started bribing her with food because she had a little kid. Always go for the bribing for the kids, just go for the kids. And I knew it was an issue. And then I would go to the liquor store down at the corner And the guy there already knew what I wanted, like on Friday night. There was a big bottle of wild turkey and 2 packs of cigarettes, because that was my dinner for the weekend. And yet I still didn't quite understand, because I was like, I'm still going to work, and I'm still doing well, and I make good tips. I slur most of the day, but that's not a problem. And then when they finally came and called me and said, we're going to get the car, I was like, oh yeah, that's what I forgot to pay, the car. But I paid the drug dealer because I needed her services. That was the bad part. When I didn't have a car and I had to like take the bus to work and pay $20 to get to the restaurant that I worked at, that's when I realized it. But I still didn't give up. I still found other ways to get money. So like I say, I tell people, I hit rock bottom, but then I kept digging. Like there's got to be a way out, and there's not. You good? There's
a saying I've heard in recovery that every bottom has a trap door. And in my case, you know, what's a bottom? Like, if you go to jail, shouldn't that be the end of the road? I mean, shouldn't that be a sign that something's really wrong and that should be your bottom? But then I get out and I go use drugs again. And I would be in jail. I would be absolutely convinced I'm going to walk a straight line. When I get out of here, I'm going to be a good boy. No more screwing around. It's like a little angel was sitting on my shoulder saying, just do the right thing. Don't get loaded. Don't deal drugs. Just get out of here and be a good boy. And then this little devil would be sitting over here and say, but when you get out, you could smoke just a little bit. And the second I would get out, right to the dealer's house. So my bottom, for me personally, had to be a spiritual bottom. I mean, I had to be absolutely licked from within to the point where I had to live a different way of life. And I had a turning point. It was in rehab. It was a psychodrama that happened because as a result of some trauma that I had as a 17-year-old kid, that I got to work through it, and it was a turning point. The next day I just remember thinking, I'm done. I'm not going to go back. I don't want to go back anymore. I want to stay sober. I just got this image of this little angel going, don't do it, Bash. Okay, let's go party. Okay.
First off, thank you guys for taking time out of your week and coming here and speaking to us. It's awesome. I too am in recovery. This is just kind of a general question for everybody. If I were a student and I were struggling or questioning my use, what would you tell me? Like, what would you suggest?
Students? Students.
Oh. The students. Seek out a meeting, and it'll be very apparent if you want to be there or you're forced to be there, and you'll be able to give the opportunity to reflect your own self and kind of check yourself. And then kind of, if you sit there and you start to really understand the people that are next to you, more so than you really think you want to, then you probably should be there. You probably should keep coming back.
Let me give you some insight from my perspective. So what I do is I recruit graduate students. Okay, so I'm looking at transcripts and I'm looking at grades. Okay, so these students, it's anybody who's a student right now who has dreams about the future, get a hold of yourself now. Because what happens is when you come across someone like me at my desk, you're gonna call me, a perfect student, a student well qualified with a good GPA, with good credentials and everything, just applies and they wish for the best. Those who are struggling calls every school in the US looking for a way in, and they say, what's your GPA? Well, it's 3.1, it's 2.8. Sorry, I know you want it and you want it now, but go somewhere and get a master's in that field and then apply. So if time's important to you and you have goals and dreams and you're a student right now and you're struggling, pull yourself together, because you're not going to want to do that extra time. You're not going to want to pay that money for a master's. So these students right now are applying to graduate school, and I get 14 phone calls a day, 25 emails with the same question. And I take the time from them because I'm not busy right now, and I try to talk to them in a gentle way because nobody wants to deal with them. Nobody wants to give them guidance. Nobody wants to be their mentor, let's say. And that's my first question. Do you have a mentor? And so when they send me their transcript to look at, I look at, what's funny is they want to be a neuroscientist, but all their classes are in the arts. And I'm like, you're not qualified. You know, so it kills me But again, if you have goals, focus on it now when you're in school.
Yeah, just to answer your question, I think they touched on like a few resources specifically at UCI for if you think you're struggling with your, drug or alcohol usage, whatever. I think most universities have counseling centers, and I know I personally didn't use them because I didn't think I had a problem. I thought I would just move on to the next thing. Oh, my problem was this substance, and then you move on to the next substance, you find out your problem is you. So, it really like you were talking about, it comes to a point where it's an internal thing. You know when you've hit a bottom and you're ready to seek help. And that was one of the hardest things for me personally, was to actually reach out and say that I need help, because my pride, my ego, I never wanted to ask for help in anything I did my entire life. So that was one of the hardest things for me. But like I said, it just got to a point where I couldn't keep on the way I was, and I was just so miserable, and at a point where I had to reach out to someone, and that person, it just opens up from there. You talk to one person, they introduce you to another person, then take you to a meeting or to a treatment center, or somebody who's can educate you more on addiction, whatever, and resources to help you. So that's what I'd say.
Have you found yourself having your social circles being mostly in recovery now? Or have you found certain organizations, or have you found the balance of still having, I guess, quote unquote, normie friends and alcoholic friends while being in college?
I think for me, most of my friends are in recovery. But I also, engaged in other activities outside of just, my friend, hang out with my friends in recovery. I play in a couple men's league soccer, and I play softball, and there's guys on the team that are not in recovery, and just being active. And I have some friends in my class that I don't really hang out with them that often. I'm friendly with them, so I guess that counts. But yeah, I would say most of my friends now are in recovery, just because it's easier to relate. One, especially with students that are in recovery, because you're all have that common goal, and or like Winston was talking about earlier, positive thinking people. They don't necessarily have to be in recovery, but they have a positive energy and mindset, and want the best for you. It's surrounding yourself with people who are going to be good for you,
I would say I have an odd balance of, just because I was an athlete at Euphoria, so I have a lot of my lacrosse friends who I used to hang out with. And I played there for 4 years and was a captain, so I'm very much affiliated with that circle of athletes. So completely disassociating myself with them was really difficult originally, but then I was saying earlier, I found that tight crew that actually cares about me, and I stuck with them, and those are my group of normies. And then I also, in recovery, found out that it's really hard for me to develop new relationships with people, because I claim that people don't care initially until they prove themselves to me, and there's normally something big that has to happen, that's kind of dramatic or very sad for us to be all right, cool, we're bonded. So well, no, I'm serious. That's kind of, for me at least, those are the tightest relationships, is say someone passes away, unfortunately, but something like that. And then when you have those tight people who stuck with you through that, it's a different type of bond. So it's hard for me to reach past that, because I've dealt with that so much in my life, when I'm used to just those people who've been there with me through all the deaths that I've had to deal with. But in light of that, I'm trying to branch out. I have friends like Gary, who bugs me a lot, but I love the guy. And then I try my best to associate myself more within the sober community, but it's just hard because it's just hard for me.
Although it's not related to drugs and such, I have friends friends who have siblings who are addicted more or less to gaming, and like for example, like Fortnite.
Good one.
They cannot put down the controller or the keyboard, whatever you want to call it.
There's treatment centers now that specialize in gaming addiction. It's bad. I mean, it's to each their own if you like playing video games a lot, but if you go into that virtual world, you're lost in that. That's just like drugs.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
like,
captivating.
I was in it for as long as like in 7th grade.
Yeah.
And I eventually stopped cold turkey during my senior because I was, like, especially during breaks, I was spending up to like 14 to 16 hours in a day just gaming. I would literally go to bed, or go to bed around like 10:30, 11, wake up by alarm at 6 a.m. my parents in the house just to play all day.
No judgment, but wow.
I think like I stopped cold turkey because I, you know, as you can say, like a rock bottom, but you know, when they're kids and they don't know anything, they're not gonna hit a rock bottom, you know. And so I don't know what like the best way is, just like a treatment center.
Well, I mean, that's for the extreme gamer. Listen, everybody's addicted to something. Just walk into a Starbucks today and tell me, can you make eye contact with people? Everybody's like this, right? I mean, everyone's on their phone. So we all have our own addictions, right? I've seen a lot of people replace one addiction for another, especially people that are in, there's one right there. The people that are in recovery will they'll stop drugs and alcohol, but then they'll go back to like the gaming that they used to do when they were kids. And it can be really bad, really bad. So, you know, sometimes you don't really have a life when you're a gamer, you know what I mean? If that just becomes your life and you're always used to that world, but
I would say if you can't remember when you showered and Pop-Tarts is your main source of food, we might have hit rock bottom. Might have.
You don't still live that way, do you? You don't still live that way, do you?
No, I don't have gaming actually. I just started my control during my senior year. Like, I wasn't living off of Pop-Tarts. I would just eat whatever leftover food was.
Then you're not rock bottom, yeah.
You're okay.
It's like, okay, I just, you know, nuke it in the microwave and then go back to, you know, undress pause and continue and forget the food's in the microwave for an hour. Like I said, like, I'm really concerned for my friends, like, the little siblings who just cannot control, their parents just don't care.
It's bad.
Well, I guess we can relate that question to asking, as friends or siblings, how do we control or not control our siblings' addiction? I don't have family in addiction, well, nephews, but I didn't deal with them. Do y'all have friends or siblings?
I know there are some of my friends that are parents that have kids with that same problem. They limit them. There's going to be, like, you can play games for an hour a day, but none of this 4 or 5 hour stuff. And they'll turn off the internet in the house or whatever, or make sure that you do your studies. Go out and play in the yard like people used to do, or go do things like go be active, go play soccer. You know, do things. I just think some our addictions they can consume us. They can make us different people, and I would hope that, you know.
For those of you born after 2000, back in the 1900s, we had yards that we would go out and play. Google it, it's all on there. Just check it out.
That's another issue because like my parents, for example, a few of my friends, they don't live in exactly like a safe neighborhood. They don't have like neighborhood friends to play with. And it's not just like safe areas. They don't have a park either. And they can't really play anywhere either.
Wow.
So they're just stuck at home and then the parents don't let them out. And all they have is just the computer, and they don't want to read because they're younger. And I myself tried to, talk to some of the younger siblings, and all they do is game. They won't even talk to me. They won't turn their heads oftentimes. And if they go outside, the parents would get mad, or they can get kidnapped, or even there's actually gang wars in some of these areas.
Yeah.
So they can't really play outside.
Wow.
That's why I don't.
So now you got me thinking, next time I go to a restaurant and there's a family there and the 2-year-old's in the high chair playing with the parents' iPhone, I'm going to tap the parents and say, you're creating an addict.
Your kid is a monster.
Are you going to be okay with him not playing sports?
I mean, I could sit here and tell you about my life and how splendid and beautiful and superb it's become, and truly, it is full. I have a very full life. It's abundant. I was living in a facade for a long time. Somebody said the word ego. I was engulfed by my ego, my disease of addiction, and I don't have to live that way anymore. But the most fruitful thing that I get to experience in my life right now is I see a lot of people come and go in recovery. I'm very active in the recovery community, and there's an epidemic going on. There's kids dying from fentanyl. There's kids dying from heroin overdoses on a national level. So there's a lot of guys that come into my life, and only a handful of them actually give themselves to recovery and allow me to help them try to get just the same thing that was done for me, I get to do for them. And when I see the light come on in somebody's eyes and see them transform into the human being that they were meant to be, rather than that same facade that I was caught up in, it's a beautiful thing, because they're actually finding their own humanness, you know. And I see young men like this wanting to do this. I see, listen, before you guys even said you're in recovery, I thought, okay, they're in recovery. And then and then you all said, I'm like, shocker, right? Okay. But I have a really beautiful life. I have relationships with my family, with my mom, who I used to duck and dodge, my dad, my sister, who, you know, we'll save a seat for her. She might come in here one day and into our rooms. But most importantly, I have a relationship with myself, and it's a beautiful thing.